In this episode, we'll explore what the current challenges and rewards of digital transformation are. How can organizations successfully implement digital transformation? And we dive into the evolving landscape and the cyber threats in 2024. Paul is also going to share his insights on the future of AI in cybersecurity and the crucial role of education in awareness in safeguarding the new digital world. So let's go. Hello everyone and welcome to Threatcast from Threatscape. I'm joined here today by Paul Conroy. Paul has over 30 years experience in the industry, the ICT industry as such, and he's experienced the highs and lows of significant IT transformation. Recently, Paul was involved in a complex and ambitious approach to move Azure from Asia to North Europe. This included the full Microsoft stack of services. Paul also was a key player in the adoption of a full cloud-first approach in many organizations over recent years, and he's implemented full end-to-end cyber solutions with SOC scene extended detection response capabilities at CDB Aviation. That was with Threatscape and our partner Security HQ. We delve into that a little later. He successfully managed new ERP systems with integration across numerous platforms at a global level. And finally, he was instrumental in building out a fully fledged custom-built data warehouse with significant integration and real-time data insights. So, Paul, welcome to Threatcast.
Morning, Colin. Listen, thanks for the opportunity and delighted to be here.
So, you've done a heck of a lot, right? We've had lots of chats and coffees over the last few years. What was the most enjoyable or favourite of the above that you've done?
Yeah, it's kind of hard because all of them have some benefits, some challenges or wounds on the way. But I think the one that I'm most proud of from both in an individual perspective, but also at a team perspective, is really the move from Azure from Asia to North Europe. And that was an 18-month program of work. It was pretty significant because it was the full end-to-end services across the whole Microsoft stack, across all of our integration applications, moving all of our networks, moving all of our OneDrives, our emails, our CRM systems, our SAP systems, everything. Like, we moved everything, and it was pretty significant. And the one thing that was quite interesting about the whole program of work was everybody put their shoulder to the wheel, even in the darkest hours of the morning on an Easter morning a few years back when we did do it, when we were facing some really, really big challenges. Everybody kind of rolled up their sleeves, looked at different options to try and get us over the line. And we came together as a team. And that for me was pretty much one of the biggest benefits of doing that program of work, because it was pretty audacious, it was pretty mad at the same time. A lot of people were asking us why we were doing it. There's various reasons. There was a cost, there was a benefit in terms of getting access to more capability within Microsoft Stack and using Microsoft Ireland to help us on that journey as well. And then actually having more access to more proof of concept capability within Microsoft. So lots of real kind of benefits on the journey. But I suppose that's really the big one that would probably stand out for me, because it was incredibly complex and incredibly difficult.
You mentioned Easter Monday there. So you did it over an Easter weekend?
Yeah, so the whole plan, we had original dates in February. We were looking at Valentine's Day to do that weekend, and decided not to, because we weren't just physically ready at that particular stage. So the Easter weekend was a natural time for us to do it, because we could bring down systems on a Thursday evening, Good Friday, and you had all day Friday, all day Saturday, all day Sunday, and all day Monday. And we had our timeline set out, and we had done some testing prior to say, this is a timeline it should work towards. That went out the window after about 2 days. With all the best plans laid, it went to pot, and we had to reassess where we were going to go and make a decision. So it was pretty much 5 full days straight, working with a very small team and working with our partners as well. Look, we got over the line. Yes, there were some bumps. There absolutely were some bumps. Post implementation, there were bumps for about 2.5 weeks afterwards. But the one thing that we did do really, really well, we communicated constantly. We were in the face of people when they were struggling with issues. We were on the ground constantly, both in Dublin and Hong Kong and the States and France, to make sure that these guys were working effectively as they could post the implementation. So it was a long few days, but yeah, great rewards at the end.
Worked it in the end.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. So I guess one of the things for the folks listening to this podcast, you've a lot of experience in the banking world, and I know your previous role was in aviation leasing, but that's effectively a bank.
Yep.
They're writing big checks, Yeah. So what does digital transformation mean in kind of the banking, not necessarily the banking world, but I'm just going to pick on, because you've a lot of experience in that. what is digital transformation? The definition of, because you speak to different people and it means different things.
Yeah, exactly. You know, it's interesting. I've talked to an awful lot of people around this. And for me, it's a lot of things to a lot of different people. But fundamentally, you can break it down into a few things. It's people, it's technology, it's process. And ultimately, you could be changing from a very small process that's being automated at its simplest terms, or you could do a big, hairy transformation program like we did. We go from Asia to North Europe in terms of full digital stack. I think in the banking world, in the financial services sector, there's a lot of debate around digital transformation. You see big roles for digital transformation managers. And really what it means is trying to take some very, very old school technology and bring it into the next generation of technology. And sometimes what it actually means is still using that old technology, but it's kind of hidden behind some really cool and sexy front-end systems. And really it's about the adoption of that across the business. One of the big things we did within CB Aviation is we mapped out every single business process across our full life cycle of a sale of a plane or a lease of a plane. And really what we were trying to do there was to try and see, well, where are the little nuggets of simplification is probably the best word I'll use, to try and make life a bit easier for our end users and ultimately our customers at the same time. If I look at in the banking world, you know, within the Bank of Ireland, they went through a massive digital transformation, moving from, you know, I suppose, very old school technology into, you know, the latest and greatest technology. That was a mammoth task and took many, many years. And they're still on that journey because unfortunately, there's lots of still a lot of old technology there, old processes, very much paper-based, looking at how they actually implement streamline automation, the use of robotics in terms of you're putting your money into the ATM now, that's all robotics. You're putting a letter into the ATM, that's all robotics. You know, it's reading some information on a page. So that in its simplest terms is really around, you know, digital transformation. It's interesting looking at digital transformation from, I suppose, the consultants' worlds, which I am now one of those. And there's some really, really good marketing about it. But really, it comes down to the very, very simple things around taking a simplified process and seeing, can you automate it to make your life a little bit easier? So for me, it's that in its simplest form, but it might be moving from an old legacy system like we did in CB Aviation from Nav to Business Central. That was a massive digital transformation because it's cloud-based. So, you know, it means a lot of things to a lot of different people, but fundamentally for me, it's making things a lot simpler and using technology to make it a lot simpler as well.
So you're using tech to keep the process simpler and improve productivity. I guess we often look back at companies like Nokia, who, you know, I guess a lot of Gen Z mightn't know who Nokia are. Yeah. When you and I had our first phone,
it was Nokia, yeah, Snake, and then Tetris.
So how do you avoid becoming a Nokia? And I mean, in this world that we're living in now, it changes so fast.
Yeah.
I'm hitting you with a couple of questions, I suppose, in this. One is, you know, how do we stay ahead with that digital transformation piece? Because it seems to be an ongoing journey and keeping our finger on the pulse as such. So what should we do as CISOs, CIOs, CTOs? What do we do in that space? You come from that world.
Yeah, it's really difficult. Like, you look at the BlackBerrys, you look at Nokias, you look at Kodak, they all fell apart, you know, and really because they thought they had won everybody over with their technology at the time. I think as a leader within IT, there's so many different trends. There's so many different buzzwords. There's so many different hype cycles, you know, like Gartner come out every year, every 6 months with new hype cycles. And you've got to look at it very, very comprehensively to see, is that something you want to play in? Is that going to be of a benefit to you? Is there going to be a bit of a return on investment? Is there a governance angle that you need to look at? Is there a security angle that you need to look at? So for me, it's constantly evolving. You know, as an IT leader, you have to stay present with what's out there in the marketplace. You need to understand what AI is. I'm still getting my head around it, you know, all the different terminology, you know, so you have to educate yourself constantly. And I guess with the evolution of digital, I would look at, you know, the Metas and the Googles and all those guys out there, things have changed. And we live in a digital world where everything has to be on all the time. And unfortunately, in the world that I've come from in banking, you know, it's a very old school world, and insurance, the same thing. It came from a very paper-based environment to now being more digital.
So there's no downtime.
No.
You say it's on all the time. There's no downtime. So you've got to have resilience built in there.
You do. And look, one of the things that we looked at when we were actually moving from Asia to North Europe was we had geolocation built in terms of the environment. So if one went down, we could go to another geolocation. But then we were kind of going, what if both of them were to go down? Like, that was a big question for us. We're kind of going, do we go back to old school and actually have on-prem servers just sitting there and we have them backed up, and then effectively we can bring everything back up again? So we did. So you've got to look at a wider lens, in my view, of the world that's out there to say, what do we really need to do here and where do we want to play? And that's the big thing. You need to understand your environment. You need to understand your business incredibly well. People say to me, well, how do you build an IT strategy? Well, what is your business strategy first? You need to figure out what that is and where they're playing in order to actually deliver your IT strategy. So certainly in CDB, the first thing that I was asked within the first day, starting literally the week before COVID kicked in, was we want an IT strategy. Where's the business? Oh, we don't have one. So they had to work through that. So I had to work in parallel. But ultimately, it comes down to where you want to play. What vendors do you want to get into bed with? That's really important in my view. And it's building that cohesive and long-term relationship that we built with Threatscape and Security HQ on our journey on cybersecurity. And it becomes a partnership over time. And it becomes a relationship that you have with your wife or your husband or your kids, right? So, you have that, can I give you a call? Yeah, what's up? Can we help? What you need from us, and vice versa. So I think for me, it's about looking at the evolution of technology, looking at what are those threats that are coming down the line, trying to have the crystal ball, which is really, really difficult. And it's so hard because the expectation is that, when you're in a leader of IT role, you will have the execs, you'll have the board, and you have the shareholders come to you saying, well, why aren't we playing in this space? And you're kind of going, we will do, but we have to understand what it's going to do for us first. And what are the benefits? So a lot of people would ask me, what do you think about AI? And I'm kind of going, yeah, it's brilliant. But what do you really want it to do? So don't just buy the product and buy the service just for the sake of it. What are you really going to do with the service? And what benefits is it going to do for you in the longer term?
Yeah, and that's something to touch on with you, because we had an earlier podcast a couple of months back around AI. It was an internal, just some guys from the team. What is AI? What are the benefits? But, what are the concerns? And for me, I spoke to a guy, he'll remain anonymous. He'll know who he is when he hears it. But I said, what does AI mean? He says, well, for me, to make AI work, I'd bring the silver fox, maybe someone like me or slightly older, and I'd bring the 25-year-old whiz kid, the tech whiz, and bring them together. The silver fox knows the processes, and the tech whiz can bring it together from a technology. You mentioned people, process, and technology. So that's what it is, but it's getting it in a faster, slicker, I suppose, more structure or model. But with AI, ChatGPT, for example, if I upload some code and say, check this code for me, or I upload a document that might be a proposal saying, how can I refine this? Then they own that document, they own the content. If you've named people or a company, that goes into their big data model, the large language model. Yeah. And it's like, is there a fear of data leakage here or something? And I do it innocently. You know what I mean? There's no malice in it.
No, exactly. And I think here's the big challenge. It's the ease of using ChatGPT or Gemini or any of those large language models. It's so easy to get the answer. So to your point around putting some code in or putting a proposal in, you kind of snookered. You're handing over your crown jewels. Yeah. Let's be honest about it. We would have spent hours and hours developing a piece of code and testing and regression testing it, doing all your different type of testing and your approaches to your security around it. And then so you upload a ChatGPT in their large language model. You've got a couple of different scenarios there. Okay, you got a quick answer. Fantastic. It validated your thinking. That's brilliant. But really did it? Is it intelligent enough to really give you that right answer? Versus you've uploaded that piece of code that potentially is in now in their large language model. Who else can see that? Is there a hacker out there kind of going, oh, there's something from Paul Conroy and he works for X, Y, and Z. And okay, right, I now have that bit of code. Can I crack into that? The proposal is the exact same thing. You've got some sensitive information around who Threatscape is and who your customer is going to potentially be, the value of that. Again, you could be hacked. So there's an ethical thing around AI for me personally. And it's like, I heard a story one day. Would your nanny like to see that photograph of you in 20 years' time when you posted it when you were 15? They're the things you have to kind of remember. And I say to my kids, kind of be careful what you put on because it'll be there for indefinitely. So I'm very cautious around what I upload, what I don't upload. I actually use ChatGPT to get some advice, but I don't put any personal information up there, any company information. I was at a conference recently where ESB were talking about the rollout of their AI, ChatGPT, and it's the largest rollout in the country with Microsoft. And there's a massive learning around what they're allowed to upload versus what they're not allowed to upload. So it's that guidance around what you can and can't do. And really, it's if you're trying to get a quick win, GPT is brilliant, but you have to be super careful what you're putting up there. And for any of those large language models, I think it's a massive game changer, like most people will say. I think there's a huge amount of hype towards it. I'm just waiting for the new C-level chief artificial intelligence officer role to come out. So that will happen because I've seen them all. So you've had CIO, CTO, CDIO, CFO, CISO. So when is this chief CAIO going to come out? It will happen indefinitely, right? And here's the gotcha. How many people really know about artificial intelligence and who could actually fill that role? There are very, very few. The people who know it are the people who are building it. And I think there's a massive education that we all have to go on, including myself. And, I'm in the business 30 years, but it's going to take me a long time to get my head around it. But ultimately, to go back to one of your earlier points, people, technology, process, if you don't understand your business around those core elements, you're never going to evolve. You're never going to be able to do continuous service improvement. You're never going to continuously change how you deliver your services. So AI kind of may not help you. You really need to know the nuts and bolts of how your organization works.
So I'm going to move it along. You and I first met because of a security engagement.
Yeah, that's right.
And, for me, and I think I've said this to you multiple times, and I say it to many of our customers, security is about trust and confidence. And you alluded to that earlier on with the Azure migration from Asia to North Europe. Mm-hmm. So that's fine. There are words, trust and confidence, you build up over a period of time and so on, but you can pick up the phone at whatever time ago, I've got a problem, can you help me out? And it might not be specifically an attack or an incident of some sort of, I've got something to sort out here. But so it's got to be by design and not mistake, okay? That's what we always say, security by design. What, in your view, are the key tenets of a solid security strategy?
Really good question. Maybe I might go on the journey that we had within CDB Aviation and with yourselves and Security HQ and Threatscape as partners. When I went into CDB, and this is no surprise to anybody like that I've spoken to previously about it, like we had a very light security touch. And it was probably the one thing that kept me awake for quite a long time, for many, many months, until we got yourselves and Security HQ involved. Really, prior to going out to tender, was about me understanding what was the landscape of CDB Aviation. What had we got and what did we not have? And predominantly, what did we not have? And we knew we had lots of gaps around certain areas. And really, for me personally, it was about getting that logical diagram of where everything was, who was coming in, who had access, where they were getting access to and from. And then from that, it was a case of, okay, well, building out those strategies around, virtual CISO, MDR, EDR, what were our firewalls? What were they like? Were they of any benefit? What patch management did we have in place? What was the cycle of the patch management? What were our vulnerabilities? How are we securing the endpoints? And when you start looking at those, the picture gets bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger. And it can become very overwhelming, whereby you kind of go, God, we have to do all of this work. But with you guys and with Security HQ, we went on that journey and post-tender awards yourselves around, okay, well, which are the one things that we needed to put in place immediately? And I think really it was around the data collection really for ourselves and yourself and Security HQ, pulling in all that data from all of our different systems, building that picture up as to where were we and what we needed to do. Like we spent hours and hours and hours on vulnerabilities. We spent hours and hours and hours on patch management. We got it wrong, but we made sure we got it right. So we had to go on that learning curve with you guys, along with you guys learning from us. And really at the end of the day, I'd say probably after about 18 months, we were in a much better place. And it took that time because there was a huge learning from both sides. There was many, many gaps from our perspective. We had to do a massive education for our own team internally around what security meant. What were we taking responsibility for versus what had we outsourced to Security HQ and Threatscape? And that was probably the big thing for us, because we just didn't have the knowledge, and we leaned in towards you guys to help us with that knowledge transfer. I remember lots of calls with Priyanka and Chris and yourself, and you guys are just blowing our heads with technology, and we're kind of going, we just don't understand this.
It was too much.
It was just too much too quickly, and effectively we just had to slow that pace down ever so slightly so we could catch a breath and catch up with you guys, because it's bread and butter for you guys, but it wasn't for us. And I think that for us was a massive game changer. We put the right people in the right roles in CDB Aviation. Even if I look at the ISO 27001 alignment that we put in place with yourselves and Priyanka, and so that was a brilliant exercise to go through in terms of building out our security strategy. So ultimately, we had a traffic light system with all the services that we were getting from yourselves and Security HQ. And ultimately, what we did is we saw it going from very red to very much green, and then there was a bit of amber, then green. And then the maturity curve around where do we go next? What does it look like for us as part of our strategy? And that was another game changer because the shareholder, the NEDs, and the executive were kind of going, so it doesn't just stop here now. No, we keep on going. We keep evolving. I think one thing that I learned, which was a pretty significant change for us, was the education in the business is massive. So you're only as good as that person who clicks that left mouse key button. And if they are the weakest link, we all are. Like I'm being fell through it as well. So it's not just people in the business; it's IT people as well. I had one recently, and I got an email from this particular guy I'm doing some work with, and I kind of went, oh, I'm about to click, and I went, no, and it was a fraudulent email. So it's so easy to get caught out. But the educational piece that we worked with yourselves on was massive. The executive education was even more important because unfortunately within Ireland, cybersecurity, if you're in an executive role, you are accountable along with your CEO. It's not the head of IT, it's not the CISO. And that is something very difficult for the execs to get their head around. I'm responsible. No, that's you. You're IT. You look after all of this.
It's your job.
It's your job. But unfortunately, as part of the regulation, I'm afraid you are responsible and accountable. So that took time. That took a long time.
So if you look back over the last 4 or 5 years, what were the key? Because I always say security is a journey, and you mentioned it earlier about, so we've improved and now we're on this maturity curve. And you're like, oh, bloody hell, when does this stop? And it just doesn't, which is great for our business.
Yeah.
But it's, because the bad guys don't stop. They're continuously evolving and using the likes of AI and so on. But what were the key wins, say, from the program? If you look back, reflect over the last 3-4 years, what were the key 4 or 5 wins for you?
I think one of the biggest wins was we got audited. I'm thinking about this. We got audited in 2 years. We got audited 3 times each year, and pretty significant audits. So like IT general controls, you have door controls, you have payment access controls, and only for we had the security in place, we would have failed miserably. Only that we put in the process procedures and the documentation around what we do, how we do it, we would have failed miserably. So that in itself was a massive win because a couple of things. It gave assurance to the auditors that we were doing the right things and we weren't lunatics in what we do in technology. So that's the first thing. Secondly, it gave a thumbs up back into the executives and the shareholders say, oh, he kind of knows what he's doing and he's passed an audit, so they don't worry about it. You hear the noise when you don't pass it. And then thirdly, I think in terms of my team, they kind of went, oh, you had a point at the very beginning about we have to get our documentation in place. We have to get our governance in place. We have to get our processes in place. So the next time the audit came around again, you have all those artifacts. You have, you've done all the hard work up front and it becomes a little bit easier. Audits aren't easy. Don't get me wrong. They're really, really tough. So I suppose that was a massive win in terms of the cybersecurity. I think even just in terms of when we did pen tests as well, independent pen tests, you get a report back to see are you doing your homework very well and are your third party doing their homework very well. And thankfully we were. Like I think we've done 3 in the 4 years that I was in aviation. All fine. So like that's another kind of reassurance back into the team as well. And I think I suppose the last thing for me was certainly our commercial teams they love their technology, they love their gadgets, and you hear about when it doesn't work. So we put in some very fundamental governance policies, I guess, around what they can and can't do out there in the marketplace. So, simple things, don't go onto the hotel Wi-Fi, don't do this, don't do that. And they kind of go, God, it's just such a pain. I don't like IT and blah, 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 blah. And you get phone calls in the middle of the night saying, my guy can't get onto this because your policy has done X, Y, and Z. A couple of those guys got hit, but they didn't get hit because we had so much security wrapped around them. And then you have the chief commercial guys come back and said, yeah, I can see why you put that in place. And I kind of went, yeah, it was not to make your life more difficult. It was to make your life more protective.
Yeah.
And the organization, at the end of the day, we all have mobile phones, we all have laptops, we all have iPads. They are the single access to any hacker getting into you or threat or denial of service. And we just have to give you guys the knowledge, the capability, and some of the tools, unfortunately, which might add 1 or 2 more clicks to your life to make your life easier. So, yeah.
So I'm going to lighten the mood a little bit.
Yeah.
And something near and dear to my heart and indeed your heart. And it's with kids of similar age, Gen Z and their approach. Is it Gen Z? We're Gen. I don't know. I think it's Gen Z.
I have no idea. I've lost it.
But their approach to cyber, to privacy. And I take it a step back and go, cybersecurity in the Irish education system.
Oh, yeah.
We know the Nordics, for example, I think from the age of 6 or 8, they're teaching the kids about cyber awareness. We don't have that here. I've spoken to organizations that are involved in third level institutions and so on. And it's really around trying to bring in something in the primary, post-primary curriculum to help them do it. What's your view on it? I mean, you've got the girls.
I've got two girls, yeah. It's actually interesting. I'm probably a really difficult dad in terms of technology. The girls ask me, Dad, can I accept cookies? Constantly. Even now, at 13 and 17, can I accept cookies?
And you don't mean with milk.
Exactly. Yeah, it's not chocolate, it's Oreos. But that just started, for me, that was a case of just giving them some like little insight to kind of go and maybe check, and this has started at a very early age. So I would agree. I think I would actually go back into primary school first. I wouldn't even go into secondary because unfortunately it has to start at the very beginning. So like we all live in this wonderful digital age and it's brought so much capability. And as I said earlier on, we're always on, which is, I think, a bad thing sometimes as well. We don't know how to turn off. I think there's a gap there in the education system around, just the basics around technology and the use of technology, your digital footprint, your breadcrumbs that you leave out there. I certainly know that it's all about the content moderation for a lot of our younger kids. It's around being cool on TikTok or on Facebook. Facebook is old now, apparently, right? So,
okay.
It's all about TikTok, right? So, Dad, can you jump in a video here with me and we'll do a stupid dance? Yeah, I'm quite happy to do a stupid dance in front, but do I want to do it on the camera? And, so for my own kids, I think they've been educated enough from both myself and my wife in terms of just being very careful around what you do and you don't put on. And we have had the conversation around, if somebody is coercive towards you around trying to get a photograph of you in a difficult position or in a, clothes on, all that kind of stuff, that's a no-no, right? So again, just being conscious of your own self-worth in terms of sharing some of those pictures that you may or may not want in the future. I think there's certainly an education component within the curriculum that you don't need a book. You just need an internet connection to show, well, here are the things that you might not want to happen for you in the future. And just giving them the knowledge around what they should and shouldn't share online in the future. Because I think, as kids, they're like sponges, they just want to consume and consume and consume. And then somebody, connects with them and each other getting on a phone and, they think they're their mate and it's not. We had a huge debate in our house around what age the girls will get mobile phones. It was effectively when they were going into first year in school, full stop. And we had lots of tears, we had lots of tantrums. But for me, there was a couple of things was, we have deadlines as to when they can have the phone in the morning and when they have the phone in the evening. There's downtime. And I've had to pull the plug on the internet as well here. So I don't want to come across as being a bad dad and just being a really awkward dad, but it's more about just trying to give some education and some ground rules around.
What I hear is responsibility is with the parents. Always should be, always has been with the parents. But we do need to get the education system to help.
I agree. And I think the other thing that I would notice, certainly with our eldest daughter, is that the requirement to have the answer immediately is just phenomenal.
Oh, yeah. Give it to me now. Yeah.
Give it to me now. And you're kind of going, whoa, hold on. Yeah. There was a very simple thing she had to do recently. She works part-time and she had to fill in an Excel spreadsheet and it was emailed to her. And she opened up a Google and it was like, the cells weren't being completed. She's like, Dad, why isn't it being completed? I need to you need to download it first, save it, and then put it. Oh my God, somebody needs to make it. This was so much easier. For her, that was like 3 steps too much. She only wanted 1 step. And, you talk about process automation. I tried to go from 5 steps to maybe 3 or from 4 to 2. She wanted to go from 3 to 1. So that expectation of being able to just click is...
Which goes back to digital transformation. What we started off the conversation with. Yeah. Well, listen, so exciting times ahead for you. You've throughout your career, I suppose you've been sitting on the customer side.
Yeah.
And most recently you have, and congratulations, set up Finish Line Consulting.
Yeah.
So an exciting part of your life. You've dealt with the security providers and all of that, as I say, from the customer side. Now you're consulting. How did it feel? How did it feel?
Yeah, it's kind of weird. And I have to say a big thanks to you and Gav for helping me on the journey. I wouldn't have done it without the encouragement from the likes of yourself and Gavin and a few other people. It's different. It's not your typical salesperson. I don't sell myself. I find that incredibly hard, and being very honest, it's one of the things that I struggle with, because why would people want to buy me? Why would people want to buy the services I can offer? There's loads of other companies out there. And that took a lot of soul searching. It took a lot of time to kind of figure out what I can offer as a differentiator to some of those other niche consultancy companies that are out there. But I suppose when I got through that kind of anguish and pain and worry, I'm kind of quite excited about it. I think there's a massive opportunity out there for people like me, like a one-man show, to make a difference to organizations that are looking for something different. They may not want the fancy PowerPoint that a lot of big, larger organizations can deliver, but they want somebody that can be impactful. And I think that's the big thing for me, is I can get onto the ground very quickly. I can make a change and make a difference very quickly. And I think the other thing that I suppose I pride myself on is, if you want to talk tech and technology, I'll do that all day long with you. If you want to talk business and executive stuff, I'll talk that all day long with you. If you want to try and marry the two up, that's where I think I can offer that little bit of a differentiator.
The real value.
Organization, the real value. So understanding, what the execs wants to get out of technology and how technology can influence some of those decisions in the future for a lot of organizations. So incredibly exciting times. Still early doors. I only hit the button on the 1st of July. Got a whirlwind of congratulations and goodwill from a lot of people out there. So I think in Ireland, I think we've got a great entrepreneurship approach to people like myself, kind of giving it a whirl. And I'd like to be successful. Like, my background is athletics normally, and you can see cycling on it now. But for me, it's about, you look at the Olympics and you look at Rhodesia and 2 fourths, but that's going to just drive her on. And for me as an athlete, it's about not accepting fourth. It's about going for third. It's about going for second, and hopefully for first. So for me, it's about, I want this to be a success, and I don't want it to fail. And I'm just going to put every ounce of energy I can into it to make it successful.
Well, look, it's fantastic, and I'm delighted for you, and I wish every success in it. And look, you and I will be meeting up every so often, no doubt, and we continue our
coffees.
Yeah, absolutely. So I'm just conscious of time, I guess, for our listeners. A couple of key things for me really around this digital transformation, and probably something I didn't really put great emphasis on. You have people, technology, and process. And it's taking maybe something that's old and it's still sitting in the background, but putting a sexy UI on it and making it more impactful and productive at the front end.
Yeah, it is.
And simplifying what we have done historically, maybe paper-based or older systems, and simplifying that. Anything else?
Yeah, I suppose that's probably one of my little key niches that I'm trying to push forward in terms of the finish line consultancy. Like, I call it the orchestration model, and it's something that has served me well since I started being the last IBM engineer in Ayrton Road many, many years ago. It's people, technology, process. And it's about how you orchestrate across those 3 individual areas. We spoke about AI. There's been so much change in the last 50 years in the technology capability. The growth is unprecedented over the last 50 years. I think people are getting bamboozled with it. I think people will struggle with it. We'd look at cybersecurity, digital transformation, and a lot of organizations are starting to adapt to that. And where do you start? And for me, it's about bringing it back to basics. It's about somebody saying to me, I want to be able to run faster. How can I do it? Well, let's start at basics. So for me in technology, it's your people. Have you got the right people with you? Are they educated enough to do the right thing for you? Can they deliver for you? Have they got that bond across the whole team to make sure that they can deliver large scale programs? And when they're in the depth of the challenges of those programs, can they pull out of the bag? The processes, you want to get to A as quick as they can, right? Sometimes in many organizations, there's a meandering way of getting from A to B. And ultimately, you're just trying to dissect some of those things. And ultimately, we've got cool technology out there. We've got legacy technology out there. How do you marry the whole thing up? And for me, it's about sitting in the middle of all of that and orchestrating across those 3 domains to make that difference. And I think that's where I can hopefully make that difference to a lot of organizations. Yeah.
Well, we could probably sit here for another 2 hours.
We could.
We're not going to bore the pants off. It's not boring. It's really interesting.
Exactly. Yeah. How many hits are you going to get now?
For joining me today, because I've got a list of stuff here. We didn't cover it all. We're going to have you back.
Oh, well, listen, delighted to. Yeah, it's been fantastic. I really enjoyed it, and it's great chatting to you, Colin, and thanks for the opportunity.
Excellent. Ladies and gentlemen, Paul Conroy, thank you very much, and we'll see you again.